p.m. and the June 17th, 2014 meeting of the Duncanville City Council is now reconvened into open session. Our invocation tonight will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Mark Cooks. We'll follow that with our two pledges of allegiances. Would you please stand?
Dr. Ron Anderson tonight.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one. For my mayor's report tonight, I am going to remind you again about our June concert series. They're half over now, but we still have two left. This Saturday night, we will have Tim Urban. He is a hometown boy that went to Duncanville High School. He's been on American Idol as a finalist, and he's going to be performing for us, and that starts at 7:30. And then our final concert of the series will be the following Friday, and that will be The Shades of Grey. So hope you all come out and enjoy a fun evening in the park with our concert series. Next on our agenda is council member reports. Councilman Cook.
You know, I want to start out tonight by thanking the citizens of Duncanville, my fellow council members, for allowing me to serve for the past 2 years as your city council person. It has been a blessing and a privilege to sit here and honor to sit here with these with my peers on the diocese. And though we all have had some agreements and disagreements, it's been an experience of a lifetime. I don't regret one moment sitting on the council, and many people have asked, you know, why did I decide to run for council? And I ran just for the reasons that I'm here for tonight. I celebrate each one of you as a citizen of Duncanville, but I came with the mission in mind, and that was to bring my business experience to the city of Duncanville. I have volunteered in many capacities throughout the Dallas area all of my life, and that has been something that my parents and something that has been instilled in me to be a part and to give back to the city. So I'm very proud to be a citizen of Duncanville, and I know many people have asked, what's my next step? Do I pack up and leave Duncanville? Well, unfortunately, unless someone pays off my note of my house, I'm going to probably be here for a very, very long time, and I'm happy of that. But as I think about all of the things that we have worked together as a council, I think about one of the first projects, or some of the projects that I'm more proud of than others as I've had an opportunity to serve with this council. One of the first things I recall was having to sit around the table and talk about the Bob Knight Field House, and I know it has a very, very long way to go, but I was very glad to talk about trying to get a task force together, or asking the council to consider a task force to work on the field house, and that came to fruition. And we did have a little small task force, and had opportunity to thank those citizens who gave of their time. Some of those folks that was rewarding for me did not have was not involved in the city in any other capacity. And so for having them to serve on a task force was one of the things that I wanted to give back, is getting some new people involved. I also had an opportunity during that time to ask Northwood University to get involved, and they also presented a little project to the city at that time for the field house. So it was not a short-term opportunity, but more of a long-term. But I was more so glad to get everybody involved in that. One of the other things that I'm very proud of being a soon-to-be former council person is assigning new citizens to the board of Duncanville. I think about being able to ask people who have not participated in Duncanville to be a part of those boards, appointing people to the multicultural board, having an opportunity to appoint people to the audit committee, and then having the opportunity to appoint someone to the parks board. And so those people, every person that I asked to participate was their first time being a part of the city of Duncanville. So I want to thank those guys for that as well. The other part, of course, that was very controversial during my tenure here at the city council person was the Wintergreen project. I still stand that I did the right thing, and I hope now at this point it's completed as much as it's going to be completed for now. But I wanted to make sure that during that portion that I've shared any information that I've had of just simply wanting to bring people around the table to talk. Unfortunately, that was not completed in the fashion that I wanted, but at least I stepped out to do it, and that was one of the things I wanted to look at. The other part that I feel very accomplished to do, and the second half of my term was to work with a very seasoned Christian young man. This is probably the first time I ever called him young man. Very seasoned Christian young man, Mr. Clifford Boyd. Cliff Boyd was very instrumental in him and I working together on a project to bring again our city together. When we talked about lawsuits, talked about how do we develop, how do we move forward with kind of having our city to be divided on a lawsuit. So I had an opportunity to work with Cliff, got to know him and his family very well during that process. And so I want to again thank Cliff very publicly for all of the times we spent together trying to work on a project, whether it was loved by some, hated by the others, but we did what the assigned task was asking us to do. I had an opportunity as well to get, again, other new people involved, and being a member of Concord Church for the past 8 years, had a chance to ask Concord to be a part of our Keep Duncanville Beautiful board. Actually, they came to me and asked, knowing that I've served on the Duncanville the council, and asked if they could get involved and Keep Duncanville Beautiful. And so one of the other important factors to me was to sit around the table with the Keep Duncanville Beautiful board and just really think about all the wonderful things they accomplished as a board. So that's one of the most important boards that I was very, very proud to be a part of, or to also give some recommendations to, whether it's through letters or whether it's through getting participation. So I was very proud of that. And then the other part of Concord Church was our church is a very giving church, and again approached me and asked if we had a facility in Duncanville that could give out Thanksgiving dinners, lunches. And so I approached the church in Duncanville, and during that time, that church was able to hand out Thanksgiving turkeys and dinners to families in Duncanville. So that again was very important to me. The other parts, again, that I'm very proud of as I depart from this role, and that is being able to support local businesses in Duncanville. I had an opportunity to listen to different businesses that come to us and was asking and pleading for us to making some exceptions for them, or whether it was keeping their business open a little longer, whether it was making some adjustments to our current position. I was very glad to be a part of making that decision, or standing on the side of making that decision to support small business. And then last couple of things, but not the least things, was that um, the Black History things, I wanted to make sure that we knew in Duncanville that we are a very balanced, diverse city, and wanted our city to be known as a very diverse city. We surrounded by us are cities that have a little bit more um, majority on one side or the other, but Duncanville was a very balanced city. So I wanted to make sure that if anything that we knew any Black history in Duncanville. So I wanted to make sure as we talked about things that African Americans have done in Duncanville, we recognize. And so every Black history for the last 2 Februarys, I wanted to make sure I pointed out those things that happened to the Duncanville African American citizens in Duncanville. And then locally here we have a good friend who has now moved his business, his dentist office is not open yet. So I would ask that you would support that local business. The dentist office will be opening here real soon off of 67 and Cockrell, no, 667 in Danieldale. He's an orthodontist, Dr. Marlon Henderson. I'll be opening up his businesses real soon. So I was glad to know that he was a good friend, but more so in speaking with him, he has moved his business to Duncanville. So that was good to hear. We just had a reception, so I want to thank the city staff for the wonderful reception that you just had for me in the back, and for those who still need something to chew on, there's some other items in the back. But I want to thank Linda and the staff for preparing that reception for me today, and I really thank you very much for that. If I had to say one great last thing, and that is, if I had to talk about a celebration or reception tonight, I would tell you that the reception of the Juneteenth event on last Saturday was the best reception of a lifetime of being a council person. I came into the chamber wanting to know, we needed some improvement on how we worked in a diverse environment and things we did within our city. And I want you to know that Linda, hats off to you, hats off to Bart, hats off to the entire staff for coming with a perfect, perfect event, planning, and all of they did for the Juneteenth event. We represented Duncanville very well. And as you know, the Best Southwest hosts these events all around the city. Every year, everybody get a chance to host it. And so Duncanville was the host of the event. And I also asked a sponsor to step up, so I want to publicly thank Wells Fargo Bank for stepping up to be one of the sponsors for that event. But I'm so happy of the staff and the organization. If you didn't get a chance to look at how well they organized this event, not that they couldn't do it, but that it was done. And so again, I just want to give them a great hand, because I was very, very proud for people to walk up and say this was the best organized event altogether. So I was very happy to see that the Juneteenth event went off very, very well. We even had a movie star to come sing the Star Spangled Banner. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Miss Hood. She wasn't, but we had the movie star to come sing that, and we were very, very glad of that. And so, again, I want to thank you for those who had supported me. For those that didn't support, I know you did one way or the other. I want to thank you publicly for all of you have contributed. Thank the opportunity for, I'll mess with him now. Thank you opportunity for Grady Smitty, who allowed me to come sit in his seat after so many years. But at the same time, I will say this publicly about Grady, and this is nothing political at all, other than Grady told me that he would not support me once if I won the seat. And forget that, he had the heart of Duncanville. He supported me after I won the seat. So Grady, I want to publicly thank you for that as well. But other than that, I want to thank my last person, would be the first person that I met when I moved to Duncanville 8 years ago. And that person has proved himself to be, I'll make up a name for it, a Duncanville Knight, because he was the knight in shining armor when I moved to Duncanville, and that was Greg Contreras. So Greg came to our neighborhood when our house was first being built, went up into the attic, something he didn't have to do. We had questions from the builders. He went up to the attic, moved around, worked with our neighborhood, and he really showed us the face of Duncanville and made us aware that we moved into the right city. So, Greg, thank you for all that you've completed and did in the city. And again, to all of my council people, Cliff Board, won't get a chance to work with Steve, but I'll get the chance to watch him and come up and talk about him for 2 minutes. I want to thank you, Stan, and Linda, for sure. You came in, you're still coming in with a strong arm. Thank you very much for what you've done. Mayor, we had an opportunity to work together. I want to thank you. There's times when we agreed and disagreed, but we moved on, and I want to publicly thank you very much for that as well. My new founded friend, who I got a chance to meet when he was running for office, Patrick Harvey, and I think a whole lot of Patrick. And it's just a privilege to work beside Patrick, to touch him on the arm sometime and ask questions of him with his background. So thank you very much. And then last but not least, my friend who will point our finger at me every now and then and talk to me and talk about me, but I think out of all of it, we still could get along. And so I want to thank you very much, Jeanette Jameson, for your service to the council and to the city as well. So thank you, and I definitely appreciate it. I've learned from each one of you, and most of all, I learned from our citizens. We was going to get out at 7:15 until I talked to for 15 minutes, so y'all forgive me. So thank you very much, and I definitely appreciate your help and your support and all you've done for our city. Thank you.
Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, I want to thank you for your service to the city. We appreciate what you've done for our city in this short time. We do have the third of the street markets coming up, Duncan Switch Street Market this Saturday. And again, our city staff will do a great job of organizing that with traffic and everything else. And hopefully it will be a successful event again and have a good turnout. And if you haven't been to that, I would encourage you to do so. There are plenty of people there. Come meet your neighbors and friends and see what's going on at Duncan Switch this Saturday on the old part of Main Street between Davis and I guess going all the way to Center Street, there by the railroad tracks. And anyway, I would encourage you to do that. I'd also, in the water bill this time, there was some pretty important information about our water. And if you live in an older neighborhood, there's some important information in there about lead. If you've got old pipes, you might want to read that. Years ago when I was on the council, we spent a great deal of time telling our citizens what they could do to alleviate the lead in their water. And there's instructions in there on how to do that, so I would encourage you to refer to your water bill. Thank you.
Councilman Harvey.
For the sake of not sounding like a broken record, I want to acknowledge the work that Linda and the staff did in putting together the Juneteenth event. It was brilliantly planned, very detailed, very thorough, and executed very well. So I want to thank them for doing that. And I also, real quickly, want to thank Mark Cooks for working with me and mentoring me and offering his perspective and his insight freely. And just want to tell you that he will be missed. Thank you.
Councilman Boyd.
Yeah, I'd just like to say also to Mark, I appreciate the attributes that he brings to the council. He'll never make it as a comedian, though. But I do think he has a future with the companies that are trying to get people to grow hair. So I've enjoyed it. It's been an experience, but I think Mark, I know he has a very demanding job, and I know he put in a lot of hours, finish up most every phone call in the parking lot trying to get in here to the council meeting. So I thank you for your service, and I thank you for the time that you spent. And I know you'll do well, and I'm sure we haven't seen the last of you.
Councilwoman Jameson.
Well, I have to say, I've had kind of fun sitting next to you. And we do appreciate your service that you gave to the city. And yes, we have had downs, particularly when you supported someone against me to run. So you can understand that we've had a tussle, but we thank you for your service, and I hope to continue know you in the community and keep you in line.
All right, now there's no other lights. Agenda item 5P, receive the financial report as of April 2014. Staff representative will be Richard Summerlin.
Thank you very much, and good evening. We'll go right to the general fund and talk about that very quickly. Again, I'll explain how these graphs look. In the blue column is the entire fiscal year 14 budget, and the red column is the measurement of where we should be year to date, and that's just taking a straight line approach. We are at April, which is 7 months out of the year, so that represents approximately 58.4% of revenues or expenditures. So looking at that, our fiscal year 14 actual revenues in the green column are a good bit ahead, and we'll jump right into the details. Our property taxes are seasonal. They tend to come in the months of December and January. So we've collected almost our entire property tax budget. That's not unusual. That just happens to fall that way. So we're very close to being at our total budget for the year. If we look at our sales tax, our fiscal year 14 revenues are quite a bit ahead of where the 58.4% of budget should be. We're actually running about 18% ahead of where we were last year. So we're very happy with that. I reported last month that we did an analysis on sales tax, and it's primarily driven by our construction-related businesses in town, and we're very pleased with that number. If we look at our alcohol beverage tax, it's obvious folks are drinking because our sales tax is up, well up over our budgeted amount, which was based on the prior year. If you look at our franchise taxes, they're a little bit below where they should be. I try to adjust for sales tax and other things that are hard measures because we don't always have exactly, in this category, exactly everything collected. Some of our franchise taxes come in at different times. In this green column, we're missing 3 of our large franchise tax revenues for the second quarter, and that would be for our electric, for our gas, and for our video service, our telephone video service, which is basically the ATT-UVerse. So those are 3 big ones that are missing. I expect when we look at May that we'll shoot up above that because all of those second quarter franchise fees came in during the month of May. If we look at our total licenses, permits, and fees, we're just slightly above where we should be. If we look at our total fines and revenues, our fines and fees revenues, we're just slightly below where we should be. One of the big categories there is our municipal court fines, and we've been working very diligently trying to get those revenues up to speed, and I think you'll see in May that we're going to close that gap a little closer to being on target for budget. If you look at the total intergovernmental funds, which is primarily fees that we collect from the school for SROs, crossing guards, for the lease on the school building, and for reimbursement from the other cities for our shared EMS planner, those are running a little bit behind as well. Look at our interest revenue. It's up about a whole $1,000 above where it should be. If we look at our recreational fees, they're slightly in excess of where we should be at budget. If we look at all other total miscellaneous revenues and services, again, they're a little bit above where they should be at budget. If we look at our operating transfers in, those are journal entries for the amounts that have been pre-budgeted, so they're exactly on target. And so there's a picture of the general fund revenues and how they compare. Our total general government is just a little bit ahead of budget. Finance slightly below, community services slightly below, police slightly below, public works slightly below. Fire is pretty well above. I've explained that in previous months. I'll reiterate that again. We purchased the new outdoor warning system, which was a fairly large expenditure, and I'm pleased to report that that's been tested several times. It's fully functional, and with the weather that we have this time of year, I'm very happy and very glad that that is up, operational, and functional. Our non-departmental revenues are just slightly ahead, and then our transfers out. We go over to the utility fund and look real quickly at our water and sewer revenues. We can see that those are definitely behind where they should be from budget. There is definitely some seasonality that is to be taken into consideration here. However, with the rainfall that we've had, I believe we're probably not going to make our budget this year with water and revenue. Water and sewer revenue, I'm sorry. So we can only hope that the weather will continue to, or will continue to be warm, and we'll stop having these sporadic rains, and we'll sell some more water. If we look at our penalties and our other revenues, they're well ahead of our budget. So I think that probably speaks to the economy, that people are having a tough time paying their bills on time. And so our penalties and our other revenues tend to be higher than what we budgeted. So if we take a total picture of the entire utility fund, there are the revenues, how they stack up in total on the left, and the expenditures on the right. Then we look at the solid waste fund. Our total solid waste fund revenues and our total solid waste expenditures are both below where we project. Our total other financing uses are right on target, and our total solid fund waste expenditures are a bit less. So our garbage collection is, I think it's, the fund is reasonably healthy, staying in balance. If we look at our 4B, our Economic Development Fund, again, the 4B sales tax is the same margin. It's about 18% above where it was last year. If we look at our Economic Development Fund, that's one of the major expenditure categories under economic development. We're a little bit above where we are at budget, primarily due to litigation costs. If we look at our Keep Duncanville Beautiful expenditures, they're a little bit less than the fiscal year budgeted to date, so that's good. And then we get a snapshot of our total Economic Development Fund revenues versus fund expenditures, and you can see we're right on target for our revenues, and we're just slightly above on our expenditures. If we look at the field house, our total sports facility revenues versus our expenditures to date, you can see that we're just slightly behind where we should be on our revenues, and we're a good deal behind where we should be on our expenditures, so that helps to offset. If you look at the medical self-insurance fund revenues, our premiums right now are slightly ahead of where we budgeted. If we look at our medical self-insurance fund, miscellaneous and interest income, miscellaneous is well above targeted budget, and the interest income is just slightly below. We look at our medical self-insurance fund expenditures. Our medical claims are very much less than what we budgeted for. We've had a very good claim experience so far this year. Our prescription claims are slightly above, which actually is a good thing because people are buying their medications and they're staying healthy, so we encourage that. Our administrative expenses are well above. We look at our comprehensive self-insurance fund. This is a picture of the general fund contributions, the utility fund contributions, and the other fund contributions. Compared to where we should be at budget, we're doing fine in all those areas. Interest is so flat on that one that it's just kind of a line there. Sorry about that. We look at our comprehensive self-insurance fund expenditures. Our insurance premiums on the left are well above. Our workers' comp claims are well below, and our liability claims are below. So we're doing fine with our revenues and keeping costs under control. We look at our transportation improvement and safety fund. Our traffic enforcement fees are a good bit above target, and we are accounting for our scofflaw traffic fines separate. There was no budget that was established previously for that, so that is what it is. And again, interest is just kind of a line blip. So if you look over to the right, you see the total revenues for the traffic improvement safety fund is well above target. And then if we look at our expenditures, our traffic administration is slightly below target. The scofflaw admin fees, again, we're not budgeted, and we do pay admin fees to both the county and to Redflex. And then if we look at our amount that we pay the state of Texas, there's nothing to compare to yet. We don't make that calculation and that payment till the end of the year. And then our traffic, street, and signal maintenance is just slightly above where we targeted. And then our transfers out are actually exactly what we. So with that, I'll open the floor to any questions, if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask.
Councilman Boyd?
Richard, on the court fines that are falling back, have y'all pursued any further discussions of utilizing the scofflaw for enhancing those collections?
We have, and to some small degree, we are utilizing the scofflaw procedures that we have in place to help bolster that. And probably more important is that we had fallen a little bit behind on our warrants. We had a lady there in our municipal court area that was off for a while on maternity leave, and we've now caught back up. We've got our warrants back on target, and our marshals are very much pursuing collection of warrants. We've got our collection firm, MVBA, working very hard. And as I looked at the amount of money that we had come in May, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when I do the financial report next month that includes those numbers, because they're getting much, much closer to being on target.
I guess my question is, why wouldn't we just totally look to the scofflaw instead of the collection agency?
Well, I guess number one is that the collection agency probably might work some of that stuff in the interim, and I'm not exactly sure on whether every single one of those tickets that they work on, if they would be eligible to be scofflawed.
No, I know they're not all, but I would say that there's not a better collection element out there than the scofflaw when it fits. So my suggestion or request would be that we make an effort to apply the scofflaw to any fine that's eligible, and then those that aren't, we have to use the tradition.
I believe that to be the case based on the activity that I see because I can tell by the fee amounts that there's a good bit of activity that exists now with scofflaw holds being placed that are not red light related.
Okay.
Councilman Harvey.
Couple of things. In the general fund expenditures, the data processing department, this year's expenditures are ahead of last year's, and so I was wondering what was the reason behind that?
Well, primarily the amounts that we've expended in our data processing department have been for servers and desktop units that we had fallen behind on our replacement program by cutting back on the budget in the last 2 years running. And this year we had to play a little bit of catch up, so we replaced, or we had a pretty healthy budget to replace a good number of units. And probably, based on what I've seen, probably a good majority of those expenditures have been made. So for the rest of the months, there probably won't be as much related expenditures. So again, it's one of those things that is not really seasonal, it's just the timing of it.
Right, and like you said, you had to play catch up from previous years, delay and replacement. Utility fund revenues, if I heard you correctly, you said that we might not make budget this year. So I guess given the fact that we're almost 3/4 of the way through the year, I imagine it's a little late to try to put on the brakes for this year. But I'm just curious, if there is a revenue shortfall, will there be any impact on expenditures, particularly the capital portion of the budget?
Yes, I believe so. We continue to monitor that very closely, and to the degree that we think that may impact what is not absolutely necessary to do, we may have to delay some of the projects that we had scheduled.
Okay. Finally, on the solid waste fund, all the revenues are lagging behind so far this fiscal year, particularly landfill commercial, which is lagging behind last year's amount. So have we had an opportunity to examine what's happening there? Do we have issues with commercial accounts or seasonality, or have you had an opportunity to take a look at that?
I have not. I will have to do some research and see if we can find an answer to that.
Okay, let me know. Thank you.
Councilwoman Jameson, your light is on. Okay. Councilman Boyd.
One other point, Richard, I wanted to make, and I know that you've got an aggressive budget calendar and exercise for us to deal with. One of the things that I would like to have when we get to that point is have been given consideration to the world of cloud computing, looking at the opportunity, because when we start replacing hardware, as we discussed last night in our 4B boards and things, my healthcare world is kind of the leading pacing world of that right now, but software as a service, SAS, there's got to be some vendors, some people in the municipality space, and whether we do it or not this year, next year, I'd like the education opportunity when we get to budget, because it is by far the most economical way of doing it. It's just where we are in our investment cycle. So I'd like the education from your perspective, but when we get to budget, I want that to be something that we have a real good understanding if we could.
The number one priority in my budget I'm going to bring you is a significant investment in your infrastructure. Our phone system is obsolete and currently not being serviced. If it were to fail, it would be catastrophic. We've got switches that are double their lifespan. They are antiquated. I am very pleased with the process that Tracy, our interim IT manager, has put together. I think that it is a very holistic approach, and what you'll find is a combination of cloud options and hosted servers here, and there is a reason for that madness. No option is the perfect option, so we have analyzed it based on use, redundancy, and the urgency, if you will, of the service that it provides to make sure that we're always meeting the expectations and the safety issues of our customer. So I think that when that is presented to you, you'll be very pleased with the holistic approach, the thought that's been put into it, and ensuring that we're making an investment into the future. Because electronic technology is no longer a luxury. It's the way that we communicate in 2014. So I think when you see that in the budget, you'll be very pleased, and it will be an educational opportunity as requested.
Okay. I just think it's unfair for us to have ideas and thoughts and wait the budget and then ask you. So I'm asking in advance that we have a very thorough, as I know you always are, review, because it is not changing weekly but daily. So the opportunity is unbelievable in what it allows. We had a good discussion last night about the library. I mean, we're at a point now, if we take in people who want to come to the library won't even need a computer, they just basically need a keyboard and a screen, and they can log in, and we don't have to update all the machines. We update one machine. So it's something that I just want us to be prudent about, and I know we will, but just being fair. Surprise.
Okay, I have no other lights, so thank you. Agenda item 6P, receive a report from Just Balls regarding the Duncanville Fieldhouse.
Good evening. Duncanville Fieldhouse, this is the April report. I believe Finance is still working with our May, so we're going to present the April and the tentative May, or the information I have for May as well. I apologize, I was out for last month's presentation. In regards to the weekend tournament totals, I just listed some of the larger ones we had. Of course, was DJH 5. This is our second year for having this tournament. And the annual revenue, or that weekend's revenue was $10,168. We had the AAU regional tournament, which grew a little bit more this year. They've already signed on for an extension for next year as well. That weekend's revenue was $18,563.57. Adidas, which is a national tournament, and it is a live event, which was the first live event for the year, was April 25th through the 27th. And that revenues for that weekend were $20,227.10. In regards to May, we had a Cinco de Mayo tournament, which was May 3rd and 4th, and that was $13,441. We had, this year for the first time, we had the Nike EYBL, which is a elite tournament that was new to the Fieldhouse that weekend, and that brought in revenue of $14,458.13. And then we finished up the month of May with a Memorial Day tournament, and that revenues were $17,301.27. And again, that's just highlighting some of the larger events. So for the month of April, We finished out at $62,630,000 versus last year was at $71,543. I put that in there to highlight. It didn't include a $12,000 payment, which we received from Adidas, which we received that earlier in the year when they put their deposit in January. So that might offset the difference of that. So if we were to add the Adidas payment, which we actually received last year in the month of April, we would have been a little bit above our numbers from last year. Small, a little bit small, but something I felt that we needed to take a look at in regards to expenditures as well as year-to-date, where we are. For first and foremost would be the food court and the cafe. Year-to-date revenues are right at $48,000. Expenditures pretty close to it at $36,000. So right now, in as far as our food court, we'll take a look at the store in a moment. We're right at $12,000 profit. In regards to the general store, year-to-date revenues right at $77,000, and year-to-date expenditures right at $43,000. So I think a positive of about $33,000. Quite often, the food court and the general store, they somewhat overlap in regards to beverages and items that we offer in both locations. In regards to basketball, we're at $156,000, and year-to-date expenditures right at $10,000, which usually includes things like our parking lot attendance or any additional equipment I might need for the basketball tournaments. Sometimes it also includes added security or any additional bleachers or anything like equipment we have to bring in for those events. So as far as revenue, as far as profit in regards to basketball, we're right at $146,000, which, believe it or not, is a little bit behind as to where we were last year in regards to trajectory. However, I haven't hit my big major months. But with that being said, that's also due to what we're trying to do with the field house is trying to diversify really where our revenue stream is coming from. So with that being said, this year we implemented a volleyball program. So the volleyball revenues this year are right at $49,093 versus expenditures are right at $1,397, which I think last year in total we were right at about $5,000 profit, between 5 and 7. So we're about a $40,000 profit just by diversifying some of our basketball to that of volleyball. And we did that basically by volleyball, select volleyball is kind of bleeding into select basketball. So I won't have my peaks and troughs as and be so dependent on basketball with diversifying now to volleyball. I have some expenditures there with futsal. I've purchased some equipment. I plan on implementing some futsal, which is indoor soccer training throughout the summer at the field house. So I'm not worried in regards to return on my revenue on that. Cheer and dance, right now we're at $10,501. Haven't really had to spend out any expenditures for that, and that's due to some of the new cheer programs and competitions we're having at the field house. We can skip down to martial arts. Martial arts, tremendous growth on that. We're right at $21,000 versus year-to-date expenditures right at $6,000, and that's due to a new program, the jiu-jitsu and the karate program. The jiu-jitsu, of course, has had to add a tremendous amount of new classes just due to their overwhelming growth on that. Moving on down to camps and miscellaneous activities. We're right at the beginning of summer camps. I believe this camp is really around our Thanksgiving and our Christmas camp. So we're right at $4,000 for that. As far as year-to-date revenue. Facility rental, that covers our party rooms, such as our banquet rooms, party rooms. So we're right at about $13,000 for that. What we're doing, we've been coupling the party rooms as well as with the courts in order to offer a whole birthday party experience. So that's what that is. Fitness is simply our Zumba, which we're right at about $6,000. We're at strength and conditioning. Aerobics, which is also a form of Zumba, and that's really it. In regards to, I mentioned where we are as far as with our upcoming events or what we're doing right now. Our summer camps are our way of bringing in additional revenue stream throughout the day. So at the field house, we have the basketball camp, which is offered weekly. We have our regular summer camp. We have a cheer camp, and we have a strength and conditioning camp. With all that being said, our average revenue, we're 2 weeks into summer camp, and our revenue is anywhere between $25,000 to $3,000 a week on just by adding the summer camp. So that's been a real great addition as far as the field house. We have an upcoming select elite training with Nadine Damon, and she is a WNBA player. She'll be coming the last week of June throughout July, and that is going to be one of the first of our kind of a grassroots training program here in the city of Duncanville with a WNBA player. And then just to toot our own little horn, this is a young lady that is a member of the On the Grind boxing program that we have at the facility. She recently went to the 2014 Junior Olympics. She is currently ranked #1 in the state of Texas, and she came back home with a bronze medal. So we are definitely trying to help grow this program. Right now, currently, we are in the process of putting together a Golden Glove competition here for the city of Duncanville that would definitely help fill some heads and beds for the city. That's all I have.
Council members, before you take questions, I want to publicly thank Letitia and her team. I think that what you've seen tonight is a real focus on return on investment. She's really working to ensure that we are at capacity and that there is all forms of what I call synergy. When you go in a building like that, you want to see all kinds of activities, and you don't want a one-size-fits-all approach that I have to play a sport to be there. There's lots of activity that's beginning to go in there, and I appreciate the focus on that makes money and that doesn't, and making sure that we maintain as much profit out of this center as we can. We spend a lot of time talking about sports tourism. The Fieldhouse plays a role in that, and another thing that I hope that you noted this evening is Letitia's booking them before they leave, I was very pleased in the budget conversations that we've had that a lot of the major tournaments that we come to count on for revenue are committed for next year. And that certainly makes the job easier when we've got revenue that we can count on. And certainly that speaks to they had a good experience in Duncanville or they would take their business elsewhere. So the fact that they're willing to sign up before they leave, I think speaks to the quality of the experience they're having. So I hope you are appreciative of the improvement in the financial information that you're getting. Her and her team have worked real hard on that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? I have no lights. Apparently you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 7 is citizens' input. At this time, 2-minute comments will be taken from the audience on any topic. To address the council, please submit a fully completed request card to the interim city secretary prior to the beginning of the citizens' input portion of the council meeting. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the city council cannot discuss issues raised or make any decisions at this time. Issues may be referred to city staff for research and possible future action. When called forward, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 2 minutes. We'll wait now for the video to be turned off. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda items. 8C, consider approval of the minutes from the June 3rd, 2014 regular council meeting and the June 10th, 2014 special council meeting as amended. 9C, consider approval of an ordinance of the City of Duncanville, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinance by amending Chapter 9A, Flood Damage Prevention, providing for new definitions, providing for a new Section 9A-17, providing for a new Section 9A-32-6, providing a repealing clause, providing a savings clause, providing a severability clause, providing a penalty of fine not to exceed the sum of $2,000 for each offense, and providing for an effective date. 10C, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, to accept and approve the Sign Control Board decision to grant sign variances for alteration of a legal non-conforming pole sign on a property located at 222 West Camp Wisdom Road, Duncanville, Dallas County, Texas, to allow for a 15-foot variance from the east property line for the existing pole sign on said property and installation of a sign cabinet on the existing pole sign, a 16-foot wall sign variance to allow for a 40-square-foot wall sign on said property, to authorize the interim city manager or designee to issue the necessary permits and providing an effective date. 11C, consider approval of a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, approving an agreement of cooperation for the CDBG Home Program with Dallas County and authorizing the interim city manager to execute all paperwork and necessary documents and providing an effective date.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Would you please vote? Motion carries 7-0. We did not have an executive session tonight, so there is no action to take. So I am going to adjourn the meeting at 8:03, and I would like to ask the council members to wait. We have some students here from the government program at Mountain View that would like some pictures taken, and they'll just take a few minutes, so we'll get to that right now.